there, this is Dr. Jeremiah Stevens, continuing on our Body Revive video series for the HCG diet that we use in our office. And this video is going to be all about stalls and plateaus. And while most of the time people are losing very well, on a regular pace, there are times when almost everyone will hit some kind of a stall point, maybe for a day, maybe for several days. And so we kind of want to talk about what to do about that, because it is kind of disconcerting, and it can be something people are really want to fix quickly. So we've got some tips and tricks, and so let's just kind of jump into what Dr. Simeon's originally said, because he again has 20 plus years of doing this diet and working out all the kinks. So he basically in his literature described that there's 4 normal types of stalls that he saw regularly in his clinic, and I've seen all 4 of these happen repeatedly too. So this is something to be aware of. These are normal. Even if you're doing everything perfectly right, these stalls can happen, and it's nothing that that we have to really worry about. They will clear eventually, and it's as long as we keep sticking to the protocol, we're going to get through this. The stalls that are more problematic are the stalls if you're doing something not on the protocol, and we're seeing differences and things like that. So then that can be a problem. Sometimes even something really small can be setting someone off. So we've got in this video some tips to look for, some questions to ask, but also reach out to us if you're hitting a stall point. We've gone through probably every, I would think, conceivable issue we could run into, but maybe you have something unique. But we've been able to figure out strategies to work with just about anything going on. So again, Dr. Simeon has described 4 normal types of stalls, so I'm going to talk briefly about each of them. In this video, on the PowerPoints that are showing up, everything in italics is actually word for word taken from Dr. Simeon's book, Pounds and Inches, which you can find online and read. And so that's just kind of, you can see in his words exactly what he's saying. But I'm going to just kind of say what I've seen with each of these, and you can read along with his italic actual words. So the first stall that we see often is something called a normal water weight fluctuation. And what happens is, often initially we're losing weight very quickly. The first few days, often you can be, pound plus, 2 pounds, 3 pounds in a day. Normally we settle into a rhythm of about a pound a day for men, between half a pound and a pound a day for women. And often what happens is you'll have some more times where you'll lose quicker, and then times where your body's kind of slows down a little bit. So this is just sort of a natural rhythm of things. You may not lose the exact same amount every day. Some days you may not lose, because it's just water weight moving around. So this can vary day to day. So, but the overall thing is this trend long term should be going down and down. So we should be watching, every day have a little bit down. And usually that, the first few days will be more, and then it'll kind of settle into a nice rhythm where you're seeing half a pound to a pound coming off most days. But you may have a day or 2 where you don't, and then the next day maybe you're back into that pound. But it's just water. It's a normal thing. Don't really worry about it. As long as it's not going several days, then that's just a normal thing. 1 day, 1, 2, 3 days, nothing too concerning. So go from that. But sometimes drinking more water can be helpful if you're not losing weight, and that can help just kind of flush some of this extra water that you're retaining off of you. So that's the first normal stall that Dr. Simeon described, the normal water weight fluctuation, and we've seen this a lot. Almost everyone will have this at some point during the round. You just may not lose for a day or 2. You may be retaining water, maybe a little more salt than normal the day before, and you're retaining a little bit of water, and it comes off the day after. Okay, number 2 is something called the plateau, is what Dr. Simeon's called this. And it can last up to 4 to 6 days. And Dr. Simeon said that often happens in the second half of a round. He would see this happen more. And kind of what happens is, if you've been losing more than half a pound a day average, your body kind of will self-correct back to this. And so you may hit just kind of a place of normal plateau. As long as you're not hungry, you're not really, you're still following the protocol, it's nothing too much to worry about. It can be kind of disconcerting, like I said, because you're not losing, you got used to losing every day. Your body will kind of come back to this half a pound to a pound average for the entire length of the protocol. So again, it's nothing too concerning. It's just sort of your body will lose more at times, lose less at times. It generally will correct. It always corrects on its own as long as you stick with it and keep doing the diet. So don't be too disconcerted with either of these first 2. They're just normal rhythms and things that are happening. The last 2 are a little more specialized. So number 3 is what we call reaching a former level. And so this happens when someone sat at a weight for a lot of years. So say you were maybe 180 for a long time. You're trying to get down to 150. you're at 180 for many years, and then you went up to 220, and we're trying to get back down 150. So in this scenario, you're losing weight. You hit that 180 mark. Your body, it's almost like it was used to that at first because it was at for so long, and you get stuck at that point. I've seen this take up to 2 weeks to break through, and it can be really hard on people. Generally, once you break through, you'll start losing again. But it is something that it's common. I've seen it, especially when someone sat at that number, like I said, for many years, 5-10 years. Oh yeah, I was at this number for a long time. It's something about your body was just, that was where it got used to that number. And so when we get back to it, it's like your body finds its own rhythm, and it takes a while to kick the metabolism to break through that. But you will if you stick to it. So just keep going. Once you break through, you don't want to have to do this again because then you'll start losing again. So I have seen this happen. Just be aware. Just keep sticking to it. It's gonna break, and it just takes some time. Lastly, number 4, normal stall is what happens when someone gets their period or premenstrual, and in some cases I've seen even around ovulation times with women. So this, just the body for whatever reason during these hormonal changes will not lose for a stretch of time, and this is totally normal. Once you kind of get past that phase of your menstrual cycle, the weight loss will pick back up again. So be aware this can happen. There's a specialty case in here which Dr. Simeon talked about, which is the chance that someone could become pregnant, and he saw that in his practice. I've yet to see that with this, but it could happen. Where that would obviously stall your weight loss if you're start gaining weight, or just stalling because you conceived, which HCG is used for fertility in larger doses. So be aware that you could become pregnant, and if you do not want to become pregnant, take some precautions to make sure you don't. So the tricky part, if you do think you might be pregnant, is a pregnancy test could show false positive, because you've been injecting yourself with HCG, and that's what we're testing for on a pregnancy test. So you often have to wait 5 days after stopping the injections to take a pregnancy test. There are some blood tests we can do where we check serial numbers to see if they're climbing, and that would be another way if we're not wanting to stop. But be aware, that is a special scenario that could happen, which would stall your weight loss. Okay, so the rest of the stalls would be for doing something not on the diet. So we lay out the diet pretty specific, but sometimes people misread something or think that there was something on there they could eat, or sometimes temptation gets the best of you. You're at a function and someone shoves something in your face, and you will, I can't say no to that. So that's normal, it happens. It's something that you're gonna probably stall for a day or 2 or 3 sometimes with a dietary indiscretion like that, depending what it was, and depending on your body and metabolism. But once you kind of get back onto the diet, your body will pick that, the weight loss back up. So just be aware that even sometimes small mistakes, Dr. Simeon has reported like someone eating a couple almond slivers, a couple potato chips, could be stalled for 2, 3, 4 days sometimes, just from that smallest of little dietary indiscretions, much less, something bigger if that is what finds you. So just be aware that it can mess with you sometimes on these. So here's some questions to ask coming up. Some troubleshooting questions if you are hitting a stall, some different things that maybe you did that could be triggering the stall. So 1, did you use any oils or lotions on your skin? Remember, we have to be real cautious with those. Certain topical things will go into your metabolism. Again, oils can be something that sets some people off, especially real sensitive people. Number 2, did you get any fats on your skin when you're preparing meals for others? I've seen this stall, someone cooking, had their hands in some kind of meat dish and had lots of oils, and that stalled them for a couple days. So just even these small things can sometimes stall, so be aware. Did you eat any non-white meat chicken or any ground meats? Sometimes, again, with ground meats, they'll put extra fats and fillers in them, so that can kind of mess you up. Turkey, any smoked fish, smoked meats, or any non-approved fish like tuna or salmon. I've seen that stall. Turkey, for some reason, you'd think it's similar enough to chicken that you could pull it off, but almost always it seems to stall people. Salmon and tuna almost always seem to stall people. Did you drink any alcohol, juice, or soda? Obviously, those have a lot of calories and sugar, so they're not allowed on the program. Did you eat a meal out that might have had some unknown fat or sugar? It's tricky to eat out at restaurants. You can do it sometimes. It's tough, if you get just a plain salad with a grilled chicken breast. But sometimes they'll even baste the chicken in some butter or something that you didn't know about. But most of the time, they're pretty good about just following simple recipes. If you have real special requests, just say, I'd like a salad, plain salad, no dressing, chicken, something like that. Number 7, are you cooking with PAM? Some people say you can use it. I've seen some people pull it off. I've seen it in some cases stall a couple people. So be aware that PAM could. could stall something, some kind of a spray canola or something like that too. Number 8, are you using any sort of artificial sweeteners, NutraSweet, Splenda, and even in some cases there are some new stevia blends that put things in it, fillers, to make it equivalent to sugar in quantity. So like some of my maltodextrin or lactose sugars, which can stall people in some cases. Number 9, are you getting plenty of sleep? This is important. A lot of the weight loss numbers happen when you're sleeping, so try to get at least 8 hours a night. Number 10, did you take any pills that could have had additives in them or any sugar coatings? I often have people stop most of their any medications they don't need to take, or any vitamins and supplements that they don't need to be taking, because sometimes these fillers and coatings can stall people, and I've seen that happen. Number 11, are you weighing your proteins carefully? Remember, we need to be 100 grams raw, 84 grams cooked. Sometimes if you're just eyeballing it, you can be significantly over than what you think you're getting. Number 12, are you drinking at least 2 liters of water, half a gallon a day? I would really stress that strongly if you're not. Number 13, are you eating any foods that are not on the HCG diet approved list? I've told you, I've seen it over and over. People come in, they're eating broccoli, or they're eating green beans, or they're eating turkey, and they're like, wait, that's not on the list? Yeah, it's not. So read the list carefully. If it's on there, you can do it. If it's not, you can't. And I've seen it stall people. Number 14, this isn't really something you're doing wrong, but are you close to your menses or ovulation time? Again, that could funnel back up to that normal type stall, number 4. Number 15, are you at a weight that you maintained, or were you at for a long period of time? Again, that was like the normal stall number 3 that we talked about. I've asked that question many times when people are stalling. They're like, oh yeah, I was at this weight for a long time, and again, that's what we're dealing with. And then number 16, are you using protein powders or that MCT oil? I've only seen, out of hundreds of people do this, I have seen 1 or 2 people that the MCT didn't seem to stall. So I pulled that back and they started losing weight. Every now and then someone's sensitive to that ultraline powder and they don't lose weight. So usually those are options, deviations from simians that work for most people, but you could be an ultra sensitive person that it's not an option for, and you have to really tighten it up to simian's original thing there. So those are some questions to ask if you're stalling. Again, ask us if you're confused or having some other things, any other issues, that if you're doing everything right and you're still stalling, talk to us. Okay, lastly, some suggestions to try to break a stall. So here's some tips of things to do if you're stalling to try to get through it. So number 1 would be drink more water. Number 2, I think walking a little bit every day, 20 minutes a day, 20, 30 minutes of movement can kind of get your lymph moving a little bit and help with the processing. You often feel better, and it can kick the weight loss in. Number 3, eat only organic. I have seen some people be real sensitive to pesticides and chemicals and fertilizers and things. So sometimes going back, since you're not eating very much, you could do it, make sure you're getting it all organic, and that can sometimes make a difference in the weight loss. Number 4, make sure you check your spices. Make sure you're not eating something that has hidden calories. Look at all your labels again. Number 5, this is one I've seen sometimes work too, is taking a little bit of apple cider vinegar every day, a couple teaspoons a day, up to like a tablespoon or even 2 at the most. You can add a little bit of stevia to it, dilute it in some water, and that can kind of get some things going in your digestive tract, kind of can speed up your digestion, and it seems to kind of help with some weight loss. It can help if people are really hungry a lot too. Something about it can suppress appetite. So I've had people use this if they're just constantly hungry. Try adding in the apple cider vinegar, and there's that. Number 7, vary your fruits and vegetables. Every now and then I've seen someone stalling and they're just eating the exact same thing every meal. Like I'm eating celery both meals and oranges both meals. So just vary. Have a different vegetable in the morning and lunch and dinner, and a different fruit lunch and dinner. Sometimes that can work better for people. And then I have seen some scenarios where people are drinking too much water. So if you are drinking over a gallon of water a day, maybe back it down between 1.5 and 1 gallon a day. So that could be causing there. So lastly, what Dr. Simian's recommended, if you are really stalling and it's been 4 to 5 days, he recommended, there's a couple different options to intervene. One thing he suggested was really not to do this unless you've been stationary for at least 4 days. So I had some people try doing these, like they've stalled 1 day, but again, those are probably normal water weight fluctuations. You don't need to do this. Only if you're kind of going 4+ days and you're really kind of getting discouraged, this can often help kick things back in. So one thing I did suggest was using a diuretic medicine. I've done that for some people. I use something called hydrochlorothiazide. It's a water pill. It just helps you urinate more, and then sometimes getting that water off will kick the weight loss back into effect. The one he also recommended is something called an apple day, and this is basically, instead of, you stop the meat, the proteins and veggies, and just you have 6 apples to eat over a 24-hour period. So kind of starting in the morning, you have 6 apples. Try to drink as little water as possible just as you're thirsty. And this usually will cause you to urinate quite a bit to pull off a lot of water, and will often kick you back in. You'll lose a pound or two, or sometimes even more. I've seen with apple days. So again, only do this if you haven't gone for, lost for 4+ days. You could try the apple day as a way to go there. But overall, my biggest takeaway is just hang in there. Most of the time these stalls self-correct. You just got to push through it if it's normal. But if you are doing something wrong, if you're not losing, look closely, make sure you're not doing anything wrong. If you're doing everything picture perfect, textbook, just hang in there. You will break through. You'll start losing again. I've seen all these scenarios come into play, and people do start going again, and you will start losing. So talk to us if you have any questions. We'd love to help you. Make sure you have the best chance of success. We just want you to do well in this. So thanks for listening, and have a great day.